Okay, so in this video, I wanted to cover a very common question I get, LLC versus trust, right? So if you're a business owner or an individual looking to protect your assets, very, very common question. What do I need? What are the differences, high level? And so what I want to do is go through some of those big ones in this video. So to start with, an LLC is an actual legal entity, right? So you go to the state registrar, whether it's Delaware, Wyoming, Nevada, you file articles of organization, you create a legal entity under state statute, right? And that's very important because when it's a legal entity, it's its own separate identity. It's considered a person for U.S. Tax purposes. It can buy and hold assets. It can conduct business. So these are all very important characteristics of the LLC. Now, the LLC is considered a hybrid entity under U.S. tax law because it provides owners limited liability protection, similar to that corporate structure that's so popular, but you have a little more flexibility in some of the operational formalities. So, what that means is LLCs don't need to have board meeting minutes, don't need to have board meetings, shareholder meetings. You can basically outline how you want the LLC operated in an operating agreement, and that's it. And then the other nice thing is LLCs can be taxed in a number of different ways, right? By default, they're pass-through entities, but they can elect to be treated as a C Corp or an S Corp. So a lot of flexibility there. The principal purpose of the LLC is to operate a trader business with a for-profit motive. And I've highlighted that here because that is in stark contrast to the purpose of a trust, right? So when you have a trust, it's basically just a contractual arrangement to preserve capital, okay? So preserving capital means just that. You invest a principal amount and you have a return on investment, and that's it. You're not operating a trust as a trader business, right? So you're not having customers. You don't have a lot of different types of revenue and expenses. You're just investing in other assets and preserving capital for named or unnamed beneficiaries, right? And so this is a very important distinction because trusts, you generally shouldn't be engaged in any kind of active business because that's not what it's designed for, but it also can make the entity, or not the entity rather, but the trust could be considered a U.S. tax-paying entity, right? So if you have, let's say, a statutory trust that's engaged in trader business, the IRS might look at that and say, well, this is a business, this isn't a trust. So instead of filing 1041 trust tax returns, the entity actually might be filing a Form 1065 partnership return, right? That does happen sometimes. So be very, very careful about what your stated purpose is before you form either one of these because you want to keep in line with what the intended purpose is. So a trust also, in contrast to an LLC, it's not a legal entity, right? Again, it's just a contractual arrangement. And the trust doesn't actually own any of the property. This is a very common misconception, right? A lot of people think if I set up a trust, I put property into it, the trust holds title to it. That's not how it works, right? The trust property is legally owned by the trustee, right? So legal title is held by the trustee, but the trustee holds that property on behalf of the beneficiaries, right? And it holds the property and carries out activities in furtherance of whatever the trust arrangement is. So the trust trustee can be either a person or a company. And again, that's going to be an individual or company that holds legal title to the property on behalf of the beneficiaries. And so again, that's in contrast to an LLC, where an LLC is an actual legal entity that can hold title. So just to recap, which would you need? Again, we want to consider what's the principal purpose of what you're trying to accomplish. If you're going to be setting up an active business, you've got to go with an LLC arrangement, right? I mean, it's almost a no-brainer. And that's an LLC or a corporation or maybe a limited liability partnership. The point is it's got to be an entity that's not going to be a trust arrangement. Now, if you have assets and you're just investing in other type of passive investments, stocks, bonds, you have some real property, and you're just looking to preserve those assets, then perhaps the trust arrangement is better. Now, this piece on the bottom here, if you have accumulated assets and you're also looking to protect those interests, LLCs can still work, right? There's a lot of family limited partnership structures, family office structures, where they're set up as legal entities, and Their principal purpose really is to kind of preserve those assets and just invest them and keep them for generations to come. But they're still LLCs, right? So it might look like a trust arrangement, but it's really all the assets are held in an LLC. So just high level, again, some things to think about there. Hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment below. Happy to answer any I can, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video. Thank you.